Hello, good evening. Hi. Now, I thought I'd have a chat with you about something that's quite a popular concept in popular culture, and that's the idea of split personality. I think you might have heard about it in films, on TV, newspaper articles, newspaper headlines, magazines, and so forth. But you'll be perhaps surprised to know that it's not really a phrase or a terminology that's used every day in psychiatry. There's no sort of diagnosis of split personality as such. But there are some conditions in psychiatry which perhaps are associated with that term. And perhaps it would be quite helpful to have a look at those today briefly and just to sort of nail a few myths about this and explain some of the actual genuine terminology. So the first and most popular psychiatric diagnosis, which is sometimes misconstrued as split personality, and for a good reason, is schizophrenia. Now, schizophrenia is a major mental illness, and the actual word schizophrenia is from two Greek words, schiz and phrenium, and schiz means to split and or separate or divide, and phrenium, phrenia is from the Greek word for mind. So it literally does mean split mind. But split mind, of course, is not exactly the same as split personality. What schizophrenia does encompass is an illness where a patient loses the distinction between reality and internally generated beliefs and experiences. So the patient struggles when they get this illness to differentiate the real world from what's being generated internally in their own mind in the form of hallucinations and delusions. And of course, we've talked about and defined those two things in previous videos. Also part of schizophrenia is the breakdown of logical thinking and thought processes. Often patients can struggle to become coherent or maintain logical thinking processes. And schizophrenia can also lead to quite profound problems with motivation and activity levels and social withdrawal, as well as the more obvious signs like hallucinations and delusions. So as you can start to appreciate, it's not really about personality, and it's not really about the personality being split or even the mind being split in any kind of crude manner. It's a much more complicated and biologically determined illness with clearly quite complex problems going on in the brain to generate such experiences and loss of touch with reality. Now, the second and perhaps a more accurate diagnosis that approximates the idea of split personality is that of a certain type of personality disorder called borderline personality disorder, with a sort of capital B, if you will. The fundamental aspects of this condition are that the patient suffers from a tendency to see everything in polar extremes. They experience things in polar extremes and interpret the world around them and relationships and reciprocal roles with people in relationships in somewhat extreme forms. There's no shades of grey for these people. Everything's in black and white and usually to quite marked extremes. So you can see that there's a sense of their inner world being split and divided into two poles. And therefore there is a sort of a notion that this could be conceived as split personality. Patients with borderline personality will sometimes exhibit what we would call over-idealization followed by denigration. So they'll over-idealize someone they're in a relationship, be it intimate, professional, friendly, or therapeutic. But they can then flip to being quite contemptuous and denigrating of that person as well. Depending on their mood state and psychosocial pressures, they can state shift very quickly to extremes of idealization or denigration and contempt. And this makes it very difficult for them to maintain stable, successful relationships without getting into conflict and unhappiness and discord. And those mood states that are associated with that, those kind of emotional extremes that are associated with those ways of relating, are experienced by the individual as quite extreme, as well as the other person in the relationship dyad, the other person in what we would call a reciprocal role with the patient. And therefore, both the patient and the person in the reciprocal role can get a sense that this person's personality is split and they don't quite know what they're going to be experiencing or facing at any given time, because they can change very quickly. They're quite capricious and changeable. And so the sort of split personality phrase is perhaps appropriate, but it's not really used clinically. Now, the final psychiatric diagnosis that could be conceived of as split personality is that of dissociative identity disorder, which is now the sort of modern name for what used to be called multiple personality disorder. And yes, this is the one where people experience two or more different personality states, which are completely different often, and each individual personality is experienced in a whole way for a period of time before you flip into the next personality or the alter ego. And it's associated with amnesia for the period you're in the alter ego compared to the whatever personality you're experiencing at the current time. And this, of course, has been the subject of films and books and is a popular culture narrative. So again, you can understand that could also be conceivably called a split personality, because people split into two or more distinct personalities and experience them at different times with degrees of amnesia for each of the different personalities. And they can often travel places, do things, and have no recollection for it if they flip into the second or third personality after the event. So I hope that's sort of giving you a little bit of an understanding about what psychiatry conceives as split personalities, but it's a little bit different from the kind of popular cultural conceptions of it. So looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.